welcome. The show is in honor of, and as always, we strive to bring you the best information that there is out there for veterans. Our goal is to make sure veterans get as many benefits as possible, and that they served, they deserve, and that's truly the bottom line. That as always, our co-host Paul Dietrich makes these shows work today, and with him, he brought a very special guest today. To begin with, his name is HP. We'll call him HP. That's how HP.
Yes.
And HP is a World War II vet, and I have to use the line because he just gave it to me, but he is the oldest modified softball pitcher
in the United States.
In the United States.
And switch hitter.
And a switch hitter. Playing against?
I play against college kids as well as some old farts like myself.
Yeah. God bless. God bless.
Well, HB, tell us a little bit about your service. You were in naval aviation?
I went into service at 16. I was actually, in those days, an aviation radio gunner. What we did is we initially flew on a B-24, and I initially served in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Naval Air Station, and flew in a B-24. This was a plane that landed on the water, and we were being trained along the Caribbean. We went on anti-submarine patrols. Subsequently, the war in Europe ended, and I was assigned to the Navy version of a B-24, which was we were being trained for the invasion of Japan.
Very good. You had an interesting story about one of your duties there when you were on your on way to the West Coast for duty in Japan. Tell us about that.
Well, I was pretty wise-ass kid at 17, and I got into trouble. And while I was waiting for assignment, because the war had ended in the Pacific and our mission was abolished, there was a request for volunteers. And something, as we all know,
do it.
You don't volunteer.
Right.
But in this case, I did, because they were requesting volunteers for shore patrol duty in my home naval district, which happened to be New York City. I'm a product of New York City. And when I applied, the lieutenant looked at my record, and he saw that I had been cited in 3 captain's masts, which was an infraction, minor infractions, but nevertheless, I didn't abide by what the Navy said I should do. And he said, "How can you apply when you got into so much trouble?" And I said to him, "Well, that's exactly why, because I know how easy it is to get into trouble, so therefore I could keep other Navy kids from getting into trouble." And he put his arm around me, and I'll never forget it. He said, "Son, I'm going to approve you, but my advice to you is to go into sales." Subsequently, I went into the GI Bill. I was a pre-medical student, and I wound up for the last 45 years in marketing and sales of consumer products.
Very
Speaking
good.
of which, you have a program that you're endeavoring to do right now with
You, me, we.
You, me, we.
You,
Yeah.
me, we. This is a self-funded veterans advocacy group like Paul. We're trying to get things for veterans. You, me, we was named because when you and me are single voices, we are not heard. But when we become we, then people and the legislators will hear us. In my case, our mission became like Paul and Ed. When we travel on the subways and the transit system, we get a discount. Not because we're veterans, but because we're seniors. And what I'm attempting to do is to get for the younger veterans the same price that we pay as a senior. Now, to give you an idea, a 24-year-old veteran during his lifetime, his or her lifetime, will spend over $60,000 to get to and from work.
Just here in New York City.
Compared in New York City. And we're trying to correct that through getting the legislature to make some changes.
Yep. And in fact, you've gotten to the point now where you actually have bills in Albany that are progressing towards this end.
Very much so. And I appreciate you bringing that up. We were successful. I went to the MTA board 3 years ago and asked them to give veterans a discount. And they said, no, we don't have the money. So our mission became to find them the money. So we went to New York City, and I started to work with college veterans in the CUNY system. And we got the mayor, after a year and a half, legislatures in the city to give to veterans going to college the same price as seniors. It was a great first step. Mm-hmm. However, 95% of veterans are not in college.
Right.
And they lose it when they graduate.
And also that it was means tested, so that you had to basically be indigent.
Right. You had to be beneath the poverty level in order to qualify, which was not the intent of the original effort.
No.
We became aware of 2 bills in Albany that had been sitting there for 4 years. And these bills would give all veterans, you didn't have to be in college, and it wasn't means tested, but it would give all veterans a half-fare discount. There were 24 assembly members supporting the bills. What we did is, in November of last year, we got the bills rewritten so that the bills state that the state will provide the money to the MTA, so it wouldn't come out of their budget, and it would only be used for the veterans discount. Because of rechanging that, we got a majority of the state assembly to support the bill. I thought our efforts were over.
No.
I thought that democracy works when you get legislators to compromise, put together meaningful laws that the public benefits from. How wrong I was. Although we have a majority and the public supports it, the legislator today do not intend to bring the bills up in the present budget. And we're asking why, basically. And what we're asking the public to do is to call your state legislature leaders, the bill numbers, and I don't expect you to remember all of this, but the bill number is AO 2131.
That's in the Assembly.
In the Assembly, and the Senate bill is S 3372.
We'll put that up in graphics.
Yes,
That
we
we will
will.
see it.
If you can't remember that, I think on the graphics it will appear the name of our firm. You can email to me that you're supportive of the bill, and we in turn will take that and send it out for you.
For you folks here on Staten Island, your legislators are Assemblyman Cusick, State Senator Savino, and State Senator Lanza. Your other assemblywoman is
Maliatakis.
Maliatakis. These are the people to call. Now, Mr. Cusick is already on the bill, but it does not hurt to call again. The more calls that they get, and we've discussed this many times before, every call, a politician normally feels that there's 15 people or so that are influenced or behind that call. So the more calls, the better. The other part of the half fare that you were talking about that was originally approved is for veterans, for example, that are going to college. They get under the post 9/11 benefits, they get a stipend. Because they get that stipend, they were excluded from this bill before. So this bill would actually bring them in. When you're going to college, you're using that stipend to live on. So that money really shouldn't be counted against you when you're getting some type of discount. And as we spoke before, 1.4 million folks in the past 10 years have moved out of New York State.
Right.
About 25-30% of them are veterans.
Exactly.
And they moved out because it is not considered a veteran-friendly state, at least by veterans.
No.
And
This is just one little bitty way to start turning that around.
And the sad part of it, the MTA has agreed to it. If these bills are passed, they will dedicate 2 cents from every fare collected to the veterans discount. So we ask you to ask the legislators, is Paul, Ed, and my service and all veterans out there, is our sacrifice and service for country worth 2 cents? The governor doesn't think so. With your help, we'll get him to change his mind.
And I think the bottom line is we're saying, reach out for your elected officials. Let your voice be heard, because that 15-to-1 ratio that they currently are using, in light of the current political atmosphere where everything is like mushroomed, okay, the politicians are saying that may be 20-to-1 ratio, maybe 25-to-1 ratio, because people are attuned to what's going on politically, and they're paying more attention to what's going on politically, whereas in the past, a lot of them had a
laissez-faire,
the devil may care attitude. Yeah. So the fact of the matter is, people are paying attention to what's going on around them, and they're listening to all of the garbage that's being spewed and all of the debates and everything, and they're saying, this is insanity. When is one of the real things going to be happening? And this is a very real thing that you're talking about. It most certainly needs to be put into effect.
And
you worked with one of the legislators also to come up with an estimate of what this would cost.
yeah, the estimated cost would be between 17 and 18 million dollars. The interesting part is when I asked actually Carl Hesty's office, because they said it will cost a lot of money. And when I asked them, well, what constitutes a lot of money? And they didn't have the vaguest idea. So we came up with an estimate, and it's 17 to 18 million dollars.
A year, right?
That's a year. And that's the equivalent, as I say, if 2 cents were dedicated from every fare collected, it would pay for that funding. The public, for the most part, thinks that veterans already get a discount. In some cases, they even think we ride for free. We're not asking to ride for free. We're asking them to charge these young kids the same price that we all enjoy.
Okay. Yep. Are there any other legislations that you're aware of that would apply to veterans that are pending currently?
Well, the two bills that I mentioned, AO 2131 and the Senate version 3372, will give all veterans in New York State a half-fare discount on their transit system. It's not just applicable to New York, but of course New York is where the major population is. And incidentally, Albany presently is giving the residents up there on their buses half fare. Suffolk County is already giving veterans benefit of half fare. When I asked a representative of the governor, he said, well, there aren't many other cities or locations that are giving veterans half fare. And I'm pretty, just like I was in service, a smart-ass kid, a little older, and I said, I thought New York State was number one, and we were a leader, not a follower. So I ask you out there, make the governor and the legislators leaders, not followers.
Yep.
I'm a little passionate, so excuse me.
No.
Oh, that's what's needed to be.
Yep. And so far, at least this year, because right now in the state, they're working very hard on the budget. But so far this year, at least in the governor's budget, there is no specific line for this type of reduction.
2 years in a row.
Yes.
2 years in a row.
Well, you remember last year when they didn't even want to approve for the Gold Star families
Exactly.
to be able to go to SUNY and CUNY, and they finally came back at the last minute to do that. So again, it's not there in the governor's budget. So this has to come from either the Assembly's budget submissions or the Senate's budget submissions to have the money there. And then these bills need to move out of committee to be voted on. Bring them up for a vote so that we can see who is opposed to this. Because number of sponsors on both sides, there's a number of co-sponsors, but bring it up for a vote. Let's have them vote on it and tell us that we don't deserve this.
Yeah. And a point that should be made here is, while the state legislature is, right now, it's Democratic controlled in the Assembly and the Senate, okay? But the important thing to remember is veterans are not Democrats or Republicans.
No.
Take a look at the American Legion and the VFW, okay? They don't allow politics, okay? We don't endorse candidates. We don't, we're just veterans who gave our country, our time. Many of us gave our lives. Many of us
Gold
gave
Star
our
families,
bodies.
for example.
All we did was give, okay? And we don't get involved with the political spectrum, okay? We're not Democrats. We're not Republicans. We're veterans. And we want to be treated as veterans with respect that we deserve.
Tell me thank you, but also give me something tangible.
Right.
And their budget, which is, I think, $178 billion a year. And out of that figure, they can't find 17 million. I ask this watching public, please call your legislators and ask them to at least put the bills, as Paul said, and Ed, put the bills up for a vote. We're not asking you to pass it if it doesn't get the support, but put the bills up for a vote.
Give it a shot.
Give it a shot. Not at either one of us, but give that bill
We've
a shot.
already been shot at.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, I've also found that in particular, veterans legislation tends to cross party lines. Republicans or Democrats both tend to support it, but it has to be put forward, it has to be voted on, and find the 17 million that this minuscule amount to cover this throughout the state of New York.
in that respect. One of the originators of the bill was Savino. I may be confusing it,
Diane
but
Savino,
Diane
yeah.
Savino.
from New Hyde Park, New
No,
York.
Savino's Staten Island.
Yeah, I know that, but the other one I think is Savino, and she happens to be a Republican. And she had their version of the bill, which would give veterans a discount. She is signed on to this bill, so that, as they pointed out, we're not politicians. We only want to be done for veterans, and it's non-political. The public supports it, and we ask you again, please call, and those bill members, and as I say, our organization is U, that's the letter U, MEWE, 911@gmail.com. If you email me, we'll see that your voice is heard in Albany.
And this is only one of many bills that we could spearhead on benefit of veterans. And I have to steal the line from Paul. But I thought it was beautiful. Just, okay, say thank you. Thank you for your service. Now put a little more meat into that thank you, because the veteran is deserving of that. Okay, and you know,
also we want to keep them here in this state of New York. We don't want them exodusing with all of the rest of the citizens of the state. To me, this is a major problem. We are probably going to lose congressional legislators this year after the census because the population declined. And that is political power.
exactly.
The more of these that we lose, the less likely you are to get additional veterans-friendly legislation.
In line with that, we're losing veterans representing us in the legislature, because many of them are dying off, and the younger generation is not enlisting at as high a rate as previously. Now, I know I just ran into someone who's running at the federal level. His name was Sammy Ravello, I think. And he's running for Congress. And he happens to be a veteran of the Iraq War. Mm-hmm. Now, he's someone who's going there. So if you run across someone who's running for office and happens to be a veteran, I ask you
take a good look at him.
Take a good look at him. Don't vote him just because of veteran, but vote on him because of what he represents.
There was a point in time in history when 99%, or 90% rather, not 99, 90% of our representatives were veterans in Congress. Okay.
Well, there were also were times when you had up to 20% of the population served in the military.
Right.
Nowadays, since 9/11, there's only half of 1% of the population that served. So a lot of people do not even know a veteran or somebody who's serving. They just don't, it's not in their experience. So,
yeah, if I may make a political statement, and this is strictly from me, I think that the young generation, when they get out of high school, should be required to give public service. It doesn't have to be in the active military, but as long as, and they should dedicate 2 years to that, and do it, whether it's the Peace Corps, whether it's volunteering in the fire departments, or whatever. This is the way that our country gets to know people of other colors, of other thoughts, and we don't find it only comfortable talking to people who think the same as we do. Our country was based upon people talking to others who are of different opinions, and that's what we're asking you to do.
Any other thoughts, Paul?
No, next week I will be down in Washington, D.C. I will be doing the VFW's lobbying at the federal level. We have a number of items to discuss. Last year, as you're well aware, we were able to overcome what was called the widow's tax. So now, in my case, I'm worth more dead than alive to my wife, but that's a different story.
And we did the Blue Navy
We got the Blue Water Navy Act also
Blue Water
last
Navy,
year
yeah.
for those Vietnam
Which is-
veterans who were on ships off the coast of Vietnam. So
And it's funny, I talked to an awful lot of Navy guys from Vietnam that are putting their papers in for that because they
have
fall
all
under,
those
they
diseases.
fall under the category
Yes.
and they're suffering. I mean, that Agent Orange was a killer going back when, and
Yep.
and it was grossly misused.
Right.
But
so these are all of the things that we'll be talking about at the federal level. The other one we'll be talking about is concurrent receipt, which is where they remove part of your retirement pay for those of us that retired because of your disability that occurred in the service. So
Well, you've young kids here have done a tremendous job and work. I have only focused on one issue, whereas you've taken on the larger problems. And in behalf of my fellow veterans, I thank you both.
well, thank you.
well, we thank you. We thank you for your service, and we thank you for being here to talk to us today. It's a
Well, it's been fun, and I enjoy talking, as you probably noted.
yeah.
My kids say I talk too much, but that's how things get accomplished.
And the next time you're out there pitching in a softball game, I want to send a camera and film it and put it on television.
Okay.
It was at 94 years old pitching softball. God
Well,
bless you.
and I have an issue with my Achilles heel, so I may be not able to play until June of this year. But we're
Well,
dealing
we'll
with
wait until June. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Before we close out the show, we want to just tell them once again how they can get in touch with you. And, anybody that wants to help in these issues, we welcome your help. And I'm sure HP will.
I welcome it. Again, it's the letter U followed by MEWE 911 @gmail.com. Write to me, I'll represent you.
Well, you just keep watching in honor of. We'll keep bringing you programs like this. And remember, God loves a veteran, and we love veterans too.